Yes guys, hope you're all good and welcome back to the YouTube channel. So in today's video, I'm going to go through a season review of my clients who've stepped on stage this year. So in total, I've had 4 clients on stage, including myself, and I'm going to go through their preps, what went well, what could have gone better, and what I've learned from each of those preps to take forward into other clients competing in future years. So I'll get started with my own prep. So I basically started prep in November 2022. I basically knew that I wanted to coach people to stage later that year, and therefore I wanted to go through the prep myself, just so I had that level of respect from the client going forward, knowing that I'd done it myself, I'd pushed myself into stage condition, and therefore they should know if I wanted to push them and push their food low, push their expenditure high, that I'd done it all myself, and therefore they could respect that and adhere to the plan a little bit more easily, knowing that I'd been there myself. So as I mentioned, I started prep in November 2022 at 170 pounds, and I pulled my body weight all the way down to 140 pounds come stage day basically. So 30 pounds loss over a 28-week period from November all the way through to late May, in which I competed at the MBW Classic in junior men's physique. In terms of how the prep went, it was very, very smooth, probably a bit too smooth in my liking, because I actually got to the point on prep where I wanted to push myself harder when I didn't really need to. I was pretty much in stage condition and I was pushing myself for more condition even though I didn't need to, and I was already in the condition that I could get into for my muscularity basically. So that was the main thing that went wrong with my prep, is that towards the end, when I didn't really need to be digging further, I should have been filling up, relieving fatigue and getting myself ready for show day, and therefore actually bringing my best package on show day. I was very focused on digging harder, pushing my food lower, pushing my expenditure higher, and therefore that led to me running quite flat come show day, which didn't really bring my absolute best look, but it was all a learning curve. I think that also showed me that prepping yourself is very, very difficult. You can do it for the majority of the prep because at the end of the day, it's only like an extended diet really. But towards that very latter end, when you are getting into true stage condition and your brain isn't really working in an unbiased fashion, that's kind of when you need someone there to make the decisions for you and make sure that you're absolutely bringing your best possible package to stage basically. In terms of how the prep was actually planned out, I think potentially I could have dug a little bit harder towards the start, got a bit more weight off quickly. However, the way I did it kind of worked well. I lost around £1 a week every single week throughout the 28 weeks to pull myself down from 170 down to 140. So it worked really well and it wasn't really that difficult. I didn't really have any problems with fatigue. I managed the whole training performance pretty much all the way through as well. So in terms of how the prep went, I couldn't really expect much more for my first prep, and it's given me a lot of information going forward of how I'd execute another prep. I think I'd definitely make it a little bit shorter, probably around 20 weeks rather than 28, just because I know that I can get into condition pretty easily without struggling too much, just because of my body fat set point. I have a pretty low body fat set point, and therefore I didn't really struggle the whole way through, just because for me, my body likes being quite lean. My body would pretty much naturally want to sit around 15 pounds above stage weight, which is very different to other people, and that's probably why I didn't struggle quite as much. And that is something to be aware of for other people going into preps. You shouldn't go into the prep thinking it's going to be hard, because you'll often make it a lot harder for yourself than it actually is going to be, just through that negative mindset. If you go into the prep thinking, I'm going to manage this really, really well, I'm going to get through any challenges that I might face, that's a much better mindset and mentality to complete the prep with. So that's pretty much what I've got to say with regards to my prep. Nothing really too much to touch on. As I mentioned, the main takeaway from my prep and what I could have done better was simply the fact that I could have definitely eased off the gas a little bit when I was getting towards those low 140s and really starting to see stage condition come through. Pretty much I should have just relieved fatigue at that point, filled up into the show, and therefore actually brought a very low stress and full look to the stage basically. So that's pretty much that covered. Next, I'll move on to Chris. So Chris came to me at 7 weeks out from his first show. He wanted to do the WMBF First Timers in July. He had basically been prepping himself from the start of January all the way through to around May. And at that point, he kind of realized that he needed someone to take over and run the rest of his prep for him. So he came to me at 7 weeks out from his show. What I realized straight away when he got into contact with me was simply that he was holding a lot of fatigue. So he hadn't deloaded throughout the whole prep and he hadn't diet braked either. And therefore he was in a position where he had accumulated so much fatigue that it was stopping him from getting more fat loss later down the line in prep. So as soon as he came to me, the first thing that we implemented from the very first day of coaching was a 1 week diet break and deload week. So I basically upped his calories to around maintenance and ran 5 days completely off the gym. So that protocol actually led to him losing 4 pounds that week. So he dropped from 159.4 pounds down to 155.3. So that actually brought through a lot of condition due to the water that he dropped off, due to dropping off that amount of stress as well. And that pretty much shows you that throughout a whole prep, continuously digging is never a good idea. You always need periods of time to pull back, refuel the tank and go again after that. So after that week, we were basically 6 weeks out from the show, and we had a really good point to start with where we could slowly bring off fat over the next 6 weeks, really make sure that we were managing fatigue at the same time. So what we did was run around 10 low days followed by 2 high days. So a period of pulling off fat, a period of pulling off fatigue, and then going again continuously. And we pulled weight from 155 pounds down to 152 pounds over that 6-week period. So a really, really slow rate of loss at that point. Really allowed us to hold a lot of performance, manage fatigue as well. And then we pretty much went into peak week. So a full week of basically dropping fatigue, filling up, and then we ran one protein fat day as well at the very end, just because we found that Chris was very water retentive due to the high levels of stress that he had accumulated throughout the long prep that he had done. And therefore we required that protein fat day on the very last day of the peak to make sure that we were drying off a little bit and bringing a really conditioned look to stage. And the look that we brought, I was really, really happy with. I think with the time frame that we were given, I think we pretty much brought his absolute best. I think in future, for the next prep that we do with Chris, which we're looking to do in 2025 or 2026, we're going to hopefully have a much better starting position and therefore can really manage the rate of loss throughout the whole prep and get into real true stage condition this time. Because while we got into really good condition, we didn't have the muscularity, nor did we have the prep starting point or setup to actually reach true stage condition. Because to get there, you have to really manage fatigue meticulously, and unfortunately we couldn't do that with the starting position that we were in. So next time we'll start prep a lot leaner, around 165, 170 pounds, and he'll probably also be lighter on stage just because we're going to get into better condition next time around. In terms of positives and negatives we can take from Chris's prep, the positives are going to be that he pushed himself ridiculously hard over that 6-week period when he came to me and managed to pull the weight off that he needed to pull off to reach stage condition. And I was really, really happy about that. And considering the circumstances, I think we produced a really, really good look come the end of it. In terms of negatives, it was simply just because we didn't have a great starting position at 7 weeks out. We were basically in a position where fatigue hadn't been managed that well, and that causes quite a lot of issues when you are getting into stage condition of pulling those final few pounds off. So next time around in 2025 or 2026, we're really going to focus on starting prep from a much leaner body composition and then also having a lot more muscle this time around as well to get into true stage condition, which is how he's going to win shows next time he competes. So the next client he competed was Lawrence. So Lawrence basically started prep in March 2023 at 24 weeks out from the UKDFPA Southern. To give a bit of context as well, Lawrence dislocated his knee 6 weeks before the start of prep, which really didn't put us in a great position to be starting with simply because he hadn't been training as effectively as we wanted him to going into the prep. But we got it done anyway. Started at 220 pounds and we pulled body weight down over 24 weeks to the first show, in which we landed on stage at 186 pounds. So pretty much over this time, the main thing that we could have done better is definitely dug harder at the start of prep. I wasn't quite sure where Lawrence's stage weight was going to land just because he looks very lean at high body fat levels. So even at 220 pounds, he still has a full 6-pack of abs. So it's very difficult to know how much body fat there is to come off when someone does carry that much muscle and therefore can hide the fat really well. We kind of predicted that stage weight would be at around 185 pounds, and that was the case for the first show. So we pretty much stepped on stage at 186 pounds, and we ended up winning the junior men's physique class at the UKDFPA Southern qualifier. So really, really happy with that result. We knew that we weren't going to be in peak conditioning for that show, and we didn't really want to be anyway because we knew that finals was 5 weeks after that, and therefore bringing a peak condition look to that show was probably going to affect our ability to create a better physique for finals. But all we did from there after that first show is dig pretty hard. We got weight from 186 on that show day down to 174 at the lowest, so 12 pounds of weight loss over that 5 weeks. Obviously a lot of that was fullness, but we managed to pull off a good amount of fat at the same time. And then again with Lawrence, we ran a progressive linear load into the show day where we gradually tapered up carbs across the week. We didn't run a protein fat day this time because for Lawrence's physique that doesn't really work. And our main goal for finals was basically to bring a lot of fullness because we knew that Lawrence was going to be the biggest person on stage, and therefore we wanted that to stand out the most. If that meant that we were going to lose a little bit of conditioning because of that, we didn't really mind, and we accepted that fact and we took that risk come show day. He definitely was the biggest on stage, but that kind of played against us at the end of the day because they went for a much different look. I think the UKDFPA are kind of steering away from the more big men's physique bodybuilders in board shorts kind of look and going more towards the really nice lines, really small waist and real men's physique shape, which is unfortunate for Lawrence because we won the qualifier and therefore we did think we fit the criteria. But at the end of the day, we brought a really, really good look come show day. And what I've really tried to get through to Lawrence over the last week is that one placing doesn't define how good he is as a bodybuilder or an athlete, and that he should be very proud of what look he created either way, no matter what the placing was. So in terms of what we're going to do better in future, as I mentioned earlier, definitely dig harder towards the start of prep. Again, start prep leaner. So next time around, we'll probably start prep between 205 and 210 pounds, making sure that we're around 30 pounds away from stage weights. And also potentially next time around, we're going to look to compete in men's physique in different federations, so the WNBF, PCA, etc., because those federations prefer a bigger look when it comes to men's physique. And potentially also next time we do prep, we're going to look to step on stage in bodybuilding as well. As long as Lawrence can train his legs effectively over the next off season, I'm really confident in the fact that he can be a very, very high level bodybuilder in the natural scene. In terms of plan of action for Lawrence from here, it's going to be a very long off season, not going to put any pressure on when he next competes, and when he feels like he's improved to the level that he wants to improve by, that's when we're going to look to compete next time around. So that's Lawrence covered. And now, last but not least, Leo. So Leo started coaching with me at the end of January 2023. We pretty much had our sights set on potentially competing in 2024 as a junior in men's physique, and therefore staying in a surplus all the way through 2023 was probably the best option for us. But then at the start of May, Leo actually wanted to diet down for a holiday that he had in June. So what we did is run a mini diet from the start of May all the way through to the middle of June, a 7-week period where we pulled weight down from 75 kilos to 69 kilos. And at this point, Leo basically decided that he wanted to prep this year rather than next year. So obviously that isn't the most ideal circumstance to start prep with the mini diet basically, but it actually ended up working out quite well because we needed to be aggressive anyway to reach our first show, the UKFB Heart of England. So that weight loss over that time in the mini diet before Leo's holiday actually managed to put us in a bit of a better position to start the prep with once he was back from the holiday. So we actually ended up starting prep from 10 weeks out from the Heart of England, which is definitely not a good starting position to be in, but Leo knew that. He knew that he was going to have to push very hard to get into true stage condition by that time, and that's what we basically did. So over that time, over that 10-week period, we pretty much aimed to lose around 0.7 to 1 kilo per week throughout that whole time. So we pulled body weight down from 69 kilos all the way down to 63 kilos for the first show. And at Leo's body weight, that's a very aggressive rate of loss, which led to a lot of fatigue accumulating over that time. So we had to be very careful with how hard we pushed before pulling back. So what we did is we basically pushed really, really hard on our baseline days. So we had really high expenditure, really low food, and then we let weight drop until it stalled. And when it did stall, that kind of showed us that fatigue had accumulated to the point where Leo started holding water. We then implemented 2 refeed days, and that got weight moving again to the point where we could continue to lose weight over the long term. So we ran that approach all the way to the first show. We brought a really, really good look to that first show, the Heart of England. Managed to place second in the junior class, probably the best junior class of the season, 12 competitors, all really, really high level, and only losing to the eventual overall winner at that show. So yeah, really, really happy with the look that we brought to that first show. And from there, we pretty much had to dig really, really hard over the next 3 weeks from the qualifier to finals to make sure that we could bring the condition that we needed to compete with the guy who actually won the show. So we pretty much pulled body weight all the way down to 60.8 kilos at our lowest. So that was another 2 kilos off, and then we ended up being 62.9 the day before show day. So we actually ended up filling up a lot more compared to what we did for the qualifier because we knew that he's in a lot better condition, and therefore you can have a lot less extracellular space to hold water, which allowed us to fill up a lot more effectively. So the end result at finals was Leo placing second, again to the same guy who beat him at the qualifier. We brought a much more competitive package. It was very, very close in my opinion. He just got beaten from the back when it came to muscularity and condition, which is unfortunate, but coming second as a 21-year-old in a show with people up to 23 years old is really, really impressive and very promising for the future. So in terms of Leo's prep, the only thing that really went wrong was the fact that we started so late. Like starting a prep at 10 weeks out from a qualifier, it's not a good thing to do, and it's never going to create your absolute best look. I'm sure we could have created a better look if we had started from 20 weeks out, let's say. That was a bit out of our control. We didn't really know we were going to be prepping, and therefore we couldn't really control that. So next time around, we're definitely going to be starting from a leaner body competition and also much further out. So we'll probably start again from around that 20-week out mark from the qualifier, and we're definitely coming for that British title next time around. I think with another off season, 2 years off, looking to compete again in junior men's physique in 2025. Leo can definitely win that junior men's physique title at the British and then also go on to challenge for the overall and his natural pro card in men's physique as well. So very looking forward to that. That's pretty much all my guys covered for this year. Very looking forward to next year as well when I've got more guys competing in the natural federations. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and I will catch you on the next one.